Good morning and welcome to NewsWare's Trade Talk for Friday, July 17th. Okay, let's get into the action. We're taking a look at the S&Ps. We're lower by 0.83%. We were lower. We did see additional weakness earlier, but we seem to have come back a little bit. So down 0.83% this morning, less than 1%. What's going on? Well, it's really the weakness in the tech sector. I mean, because everybody's looking at the valuations, and the sentiment is really growing, You see this continuing concern over the massive CapEx spends on AI infrastructure, and the question is, will these spends be able to be turned into revenue? You saw China, a model come out of China recently, without the heavy CapEx spend that's said to be just as good as OpenAI. So we got to question that. At the end of the day, some of the smaller firms that did a lot of borrowing, those guys aren't going to be able to last. But something like Amazon and Google that already have a presence in this sector, they're going to be okay. Same thing. Meta, spending a lot of money trying to do catch up. They're trying to get into the cloud space. They're talking about it. We'll have the jury's still out on whether their efforts will be able to generate sufficient returns or not. We got to talk about oil prices because they're moving higher. The U.S. launched another round of airstrikes on Iran. Listen, they're trying to get Iran back to the negotiating table by bombing them and bombing them again and bombing them again. They went after some bridges and and a radar tower this morning. On the economic front, markets are waiting this morning's reports on housing stats and the industrial production report. In corporate news, you got to watch shares of Yum Brands. They own Taco Bell, and Taco Bell is said to be tied to the recent outbreak of a food illness, and they really they found it to be the lettuce that's being used at Taco Bell. Verizon, ticker VZ, moving forward with its layoffs and selling of Verizon-owned stores. Coca-Cola, they got that Fairlife milk brand that's suspended U.S. production after ransomware attacks. On the earnings front, FITB, Fifth Third Bancorp, trading higher after their results. Alcoa, ISRG, Netflix are trading lower after their results. Looking ahead to next week, we got earnings coming out from Domino's, NVS, Interactive Broker, Google, Tesla, ServiceNow, Verizon, Intel, and American Express. They're all scheduled to release next week. Now let's take a look at what we see going on over in Europe. And the DAX is down 0.48%, which isn't bad. It's really come back a lot because it was down significantly more. It's down only 118 points now, but tech stocks are moving lower due to the valuation concerns. Now the FTSE's flat. It's really outperforming the other European exchanges because it has a relatively limited exposure to tech stocks, and energy shares are advancing. Financial stocks are trading a little weak, but the FTSE's essentially flat today. The CAC in Paris is lower by 0.63%. Luxury stocks, tech shares are selling off, and then, of course, there's expectations of a ECB rate hike as oil prices tick higher, which is going to create inflation concerns. Then we look over at Asia last night, and Asia was very negative. I mean, if you look at the Nikkei, it dropped 4.03% or 2,694 points, with technology and AI shares really leading the sell-off. Rising oil prices didn't help the sentiment either. Then you look at the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, finished lower by 446 points or 1.78%, with heavy selling in AI-related shares. Same thing with China. The Shanghai finished lower by 3.05%, with weakness in the tech sector. Then we're looking at oil this morning, and oil is now lower by more than 2%. Oil is now higher by more than 2%. You got WTI at $80.85. That's up 2.41%. You got Brent at $86.04. That's up 2.15%. Oil's on track for a 10% weekly gain, driven by the collapse of the peace talks and renewed hostilities in the Middle East. The U.S. continued to, do its airstrikes overnight. So we'll have to wait and see if Iran responds by telling the Houthis to try and close the Red Sea. But we'll keep an eye out on that. And now we're turning over earnings, and we're taking a look at the earnings from last night. We got to start off with Netflix. You look at Netflix; it's down over 11% this morning. They beat by a penny. They did it on lower revenue. There are concerns with engagement, but Netflix came out and said they're going to start producing less engagement numbers. So that's really weakening the stock this morning. Alcoa, ticker AA, they missed by 7 cents on lower revenue. That stock's down 1.76% this morning. But Fifth Avenue Bank, the FITB, Fifth Third Bancorp, that's up over 0.5% this morning. Stock beat by 4 cents on higher revenue. Not a bad report. Upcoming Monday morning, Domino's Pizza, EPS is $4.10, expected move 10.66%. On economic front, we got housing stats and building permits coming out at 8:30 a.m. And then we have industrial and import-export prices. Then at 9:15, we get industrial production. Then at 10 a.m., we're going to get the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment report. In terms of news hitting the tape this morning, we've got to start off with Apple, which stock is trading lower this morning. They're targeting dozens of OpenAI employees with legal letters. Apparently, their home speaker system that OpenAI is developing said to be built on a link to the Apple OS, and that's going to be an issue for them. Amazon, Meta's planning on poaching Amazon's top computing executives. It's because it's looking to move fast into the cloud business. Google, EU regulators orders Google to open up Android search to competitors. Dow Jones 30s, we've got to talk about Boeing. Boeing and Airbus are competing for a major plane order with SMBC Aviation Capital. Remember, on Monday, that starts at Farnborough International Air Show. Verizon restructuring is underway, 3,000 layoffs and plans to close 247 Verizon-owned stores. Disney, Trump calls out ABC and NBC for not airing his primetime speech. Guidance news, Netflix lowers its full year 2026 guidance revenue to $51 billion to $51.4 billion. Street estimates $51.38 billion. In terms of buyback news, Valero Energy, VLO, they authorize an additional $5 billion share repurchasing program. Okay, let's move on and let's talk about our pick of the day for today. And I got an interesting one. It's Monarch Casino and Resort, MCRI. Earnings are out Monday morning. EPS is $1.75. Expected move is 9.36%. You look at yesterday's call volume, and at 23 calls traded to 3 puts, 0.11 put-to-call ratio. Open interest is probably a better indication, but again, you got 1,742 calls versus 90 puts, a 0.05 put-to-call ratio. So it's very structured on the buy in there. And the major brokers are positive. You continue to see raising price targets. But for me, I want to get in 125 or under. I think there could be some initial weakness this morning, which I'd like to take advantage of, and I think it will make 1% gain during the day. But keep an eye out on MCRI, Monarch Casino Resorts, for today, earnings Monday morning. Okay, now we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the stocks that are making moves this morning, see if we see any hot stories in the last 15, 20 minutes or so. Chip sell-off is just a wobble, JP Morgan strategist says. Yeah. There will be, a few big winners and, a number of losers, but it's okay. SpaceX trading lower after scrubbing that Starship test flight. Yeah, they're gonna relaunch in a few days, next week, looks like. Databricks raises $3 billion in Series M financing. Molina Healthcare, MOH, are going to join the S&P 400. And they're going to join it on July 22nd. PSNL said to be hired bankers to review a potential sale of the company. Merck's being talked about as a potential suitor, MRK. That's all I'm really seeing. Okay, now we're going to move on to yesterday's pick of the day, ticker FITB, Frank India Tom Boy, Fifth Third Bancorp. Listen, the stock opened up at 58.28, fell down to 58.09, and then closed at 59.37. And this morning it traded as high as 59.95. So yeah, the 1% was definitely there. FITB was a winner. Good pick. All right, traders, if you want more information on Newsware, please go to www.newsware.com. In the meantime, you guys know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.